Hey, afternoon. Firstly, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Eugene. I'm from Hitachi Consulting. I feel the honor to be invited by Ali to be here to share our experience and solutions on the traditional brand new retail transformations. Now, if we were recall our time back, roughly about 2 decades ago, someone had the great idea to start to thinking about doing the commerce on the internet. And Alibaba was actually formed about 18 years ago. So that's where, the first wave hit. And I don't know how many of you are old enough like me to experience the first wave. But for the most people, actually, the significant impact we start seeing is about 10 years ago, which I have the chart seeing in China. On the right side, actually, is the traditional retail growth lines. On the left side, actually, on your right side is actually, you're seeing the tremendous growth, 3-digit growth about 10 years ago, later slightly turning down to the reasonable growth. But don't fall by this line, because once the size gets really big, the percentage actually drops. And the other things don't really fall by this line also is, don't be really too scared about when these two lines seeing all going down. Because when the things gets bigger, it gets slowed down. When the baby grows to the certain age, like a 20 years old, it gets mature and slowed down. But still, it's at the 16%, much higher than today's our GDP, which is hovering around 8%. But draw a line about 8 to 10% on this chart, you will probably realize one of the crossing point, which somewhere around 2012. That's where our traditional retail actually go below our GDP growth lines. And where actually the online always consistently stay above line. Now, for these who of you actually are managing the brands and managing the sales of the traditional sales, likely if you're in China, you're probably going to be assigned a task of thinking about how to deal with this e-commerce impact. At that time, you're probably very confused. And I've been talking to many people, and many of them are my customers. Most of the traditional brand companies start doing it by setting up its own e-commerce fulfillment department. And most of them experience tremendous problems and difficulties to deal with it, because the world are so different. You used to handle things in a big batch. You ship the whole truckload to your distributors. Now the order coming to 1 piece, 2 piece. And then they will compare your services with Taobao. So you really had a pretty miserable life trying to deal with it. And most of the company actually choose to surround it and then hand over to third-party logistic fulfillment partners. There are many in China. And also, or just pointing few of your traditional channel partner to handle your online sales. And once you do that, it seems life gets back to normal, because most of the time, your customer no longer yelling to say, I want to buy the goods from online, and then you have the brand presence on the internet, and then customer no longer yelling at you, and your internet sales actually grows tremendously, and most of the time, you will be able to report back to your boss pretty happily to say, hey, I did a great job, every year is a great increase, no more complaint, we have the online presence, and so on and so forth. Are we really there success? Most of us, after these 2 days, you probably say no. Because particularly last year when Jack actually stand up to say, after so many years, e-commerce probably in 10 or 20 years is no longer going to be there. The only thing exists is going to be new retail. Now, what does it really mean? Is that after 20 years of e-commerce gets young enough, need to produce a baby together with traditional retail and something called new retail. That's probably, there's some wisdom on it. So when we look at it, actually, one of the things, when we look at it, look back, when your boss look at it to say, hey, how I'm going to evaluate your things? What about the new retails? What do we need to do? And what are the challenges and so on and so forth. typically people were always still talking about all the challenges about cross channels, how to get inventory cross, how do we integrate the channels, how do we get a fast response, how do we get the data, and so on and so forth. While we try to wrap it up to say, these are the challenges you probably need to get it cross when you do a new retail. That's what the survey says. When I look at this data, digital transformation, omni-channel integrating, effective customer marketing, supply chain optimization, I'm actually quite puzzled because I've been in the consulting for about 20 years. This does not really tell me anything new. I'm like, no, we're missing something. That's not really what we talk about, a new retail. So what is this really new retail about? And we got this answer, probably, interesting one. That's everyone, it says something real, Traditionally, how do we organize our retail? We got our, product life management cycle team, try to come up with a very innovative product. Then we're thinking, where are we going to put the product, right? You're probably going to put up strategic warehouse, globally, 5-6 regional warehouses in the country, another 5-6, and try to get it delivered to where you think people are going to buy. Then if you look around the discussion in the last few years, people basically think things start to change. Actually, we're also seeing that changes. Now, it starts to build around very differently. It starts to look at it, what people really want to buy. Where are they buying? And at what are they buying? What do they want and where are they buying? Now, I'm thinking deeper to say how and what's really driving these changes besides everything saying, and how we manage to do it. Now, I think we were searching for the answer, and certainly we realized when we're doing lots of talk with customers or working with Alibaba, we realize one thing really has changed over the last 3 or 4 years. Now we are seeing much more data coming up. We realize people now having the capability actually understand where actually people are buying, where exactly it is buying and where it gets consumed. Now, when you're thinking about the online, it's quite easy to think about it. If you're using Taobao in China or Tmall or JD, you would imagine Ali has all the data about who purchased this particular product, when it gets shipped to, and how many times it's repeating buying. Now, AWS probably has, Amazon probably has the similar data somewhere there. And also, if you are visiting Tencent, sorry to mention the name because that's a very important part of an ecosystem, you would realize actually there are tremendous data, among Ali, among Tencent. I'm actually pretty scared, actually. They actually knows every day where I am. Based on the location-based system, they actually, even on the physical shop, they know what time I walk into the shop. And today, we are in Hangzhou. I do not know how many of you experienced the Alipay, but you probably realize every single counters is actually enabled by Alipay. But just think deeper. So even in the physical store, in the world, the data is somewhere sitting there to telling you, I'm Eugene, I walk into the store, I pay the money, I purchase that stuff. I can no longer hide. So whether you are online, doing the online purchase, which totally you have nowhere to hide. Today's, I don't know how many of you living in China, but I believe anywhere you live in the world, when you purchase on e-commerce, you'll be able to see where the goods actually get shipped, and so on and so forth. So there's nowhere to hide what you purchase. And even in the physical world, although you're probably thinking you can still hide it to say, what do I purchase? But the trend start to seeing, particularly in Hangzhou, people actually knowing exactly which store you work in, what you buying. Are you repeat buying, or you walk to your competitors' stores and turn to your stores? These data are all available. So in this last 2 or 3 days, we hear a lot about what is the next revolution. It's driven by data. With all the data available, all of a sudden you actually be able to predict who is going to buy your product, where are they located, what do they want. It's very, very different things. So that's actually making the huge changes. So if today if you really ask me, what are really shaping the retail industry? It's one thing. The retail industry is also powered by the data as energy, as a data intelligence. So that's really what's changing. And that's actually helped the retail industry to be able to change to say from how to push the product to how to build around the people to fulfill their needs. That's what's really changing. Then you probably ask, like, okay, Eugene, you have told us so many things. What are we going to do, right? Jack actually brought up the saying, which I cannot agree further. He said, people actually believe it, then you can see it. Right, that's day one. He actually said that. Actually, if you can't really believe that's the future, you can't see it and you can't get there. Now, we are talking about the new retail. A name was given birth by Jack last year. And most of the people was wondering, what does it really mean? There's so many elements there. How do we get there? Now, we has actually been working with Ali for, quite a time, try to give a roadmap to say to the traditional retail brand owners, what does it really mean? And we come up the maturity model, Hitachi Consulting's new retail maturity model, to help you to figure out to say, let's look at it. What are the elements really needed? Talking about the customer, the goods, the consume scenario, the logistics, the payment, and the various tools you would have. So that would actually to tell you where exactly you are. Now, end of the journey, I think if you stay here for 2 days so far or 3 days now, you probably will figure out the keywords actually is to start to thinking about how to use the data, where today all these data are. So if you asking me, quoting about the online managers, the traditional brand has signed to, if at this moment you are still very happy about just report back to your boss to saying, hey, my online sales goes up every month, I got a great job, then I think, you need to a little bit worry. Or if you're the CEO of the brand, if your online manager only telling you this, then I think, there's some improvement need to be made. What's really need to think is to say, what's really the data is available? Are we taking advantage of it? Now, certain countries will have different rules about the security, but I'm just speaking from pure technology point of view. Today, firstly, think about whatever going online. In China, very simple. You need to really to understand how all your product being shipped in Tmall. You might appoint 3 resellers, right? Online reseller. You need to understand how they are selling it, what exactly they are moving the goods. And you might also, and they are also selling in JD likely, right? Or Suning, Gourmet, and there's like 20 platforms in China helping you selling across the products. And you might have your own website. All these data, are we using them, try to get something out? If we are not, I think we're a little bit trouble. Then talking about your traditional retail store. Are we still thinking this is the traditional site? We can't do anything about it because, it's so troublesome. It might give a bad customer experience. We ask customer to give the, personal information out, which I will resist to. But think about it, what you can do. Talk to Ali, talk to us, probably also talk to Tencent. I'm going to say it because they're really part of the network. Talk to everyone to figure out what exactly the data is going out. So if we can gather all these data, put somewhere in the Ali Cloud, we change it out, it will give you a much better picture about what's really going on there. Once you have all these things, then we can talk about the artificial intelligence, the data as an energy, so we can help you to design the new futures. Well, I'm not going to say too much about this. This is very usual. Once you see what's the future like, it's pretty easy to define the roadmap. Then, with Ali Cloud, with us, or someone else, going to sit down and try to help you to figure out how to get there. There's plenty of tools there. Even the tools are not there. Just learn from Ali, Someone going to invent it if we know the problem, Again, I'm going to quote Jack Ma again. He's really, I admire him. He says, resolve the problem is not difficult. The problem is the difficult part is defining the problem and knowing you have the problem. I'm going to say a little bit about Hitachi Consulting at my last end of my sessions. So what we really do, working together with Ali, is try to help in this particular session to try to help traditional brand owner, or in the old way defined as a manufacturer, but these days the manufacturer probably no longer manufactures, just like Apple. They own the brand, they do the R&D, but say they no longer manufactures. So we generally refer as the brand owner. So what exactly we can help you is, besides we're talking about coming up with the visions, help you to think about what's the futures, from the pure tactic point of view, we're talking about the omni-channel visibilities. Give you the insight about all the channels we're talking about, help you to pull the data in so you have the visibilities. And we're talking about the customer insight. Now, as what I all discussed, you probably realize now you probably be able to tell, regardless of what you sell, your customer's full profile, at what age they're buying, at what their income. I mean, trust me, the data is there. But I mean, we probably need to go through some, personal security, privacies, and so on. But trust me, the data is actually there. But we need to think about what to do. But most of the case, you probably need a customer's consensus before using the data. But really, even with the basic data today, we will have much better picture about what is your customers like, female, age, or male. Old guy, young guy, where they located, how often they buy, without revealing what their incomes and so on and so forth. So these are the important things. And talking about precision marketing, we're all talking about all the intelligence, how to use it. The best way to use it is start talking about one-to-one marketing, precision marketing. You can target to particular group, test them. You can do the A/B test, as all the old tricks of the online. Start doing all these things will help you totally change the view of how to do it. The fourth thing we're doing is we also, we live in the ecosystem. There's many partners within the Ali Cloud. Many of them has lots of great technologies, solutions has been involved in the last 10 years. We're really working with them to bring all these things to you. A bit of technical solutions, if you are, worried a little bit of technical things. We have our own smart commerce platform, pretty fast to get it, on deploy. We'll be able to do a war room display for you, which you have probably seen it in this exhibition for many times. Beautiful war room. So if you want to understand your retail much better, as you have been seeing in the exhibition room in the past few days, we have the solution for you. And we have the 360 user profiles. If you start to profiling who is your customer, how to deal with. And importantly, we have the digital precision marketing tools for you to try it out, how all this thing works out. So just to wrap it up, so it's important to understand all these various things happening of your product in the market. We're talking about who is your customer, what's their behavior, how do they interact, and so on and so forth. How all your channel partner performed in the past, how your omni-channel is doing. But also, at your right side is the capability to start to controlling all these things cross-channel. Your product, your customers, how to serve them, and then how to do the marketing effectively across all the channels. To end this, I would like to thank Ali Crowd to give the opportunity to us. Also, thank you for, all the partnership we has been to come to solution and work together to help customers like you. Thank you.